Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi and here I like to talk about luxury beauty. Today we're taking a look at all of the new Gucci blushes. So I do have a video introducing the first shade, number 4, that I picked up when that first popped up on the Gucci website. That was about a week ago. I'll leave that linked down below in the description box. And then I picked up all of the others. So I have been testing these, testing out the formula. So I have my thoughts on that. And I have all of the shades. So we're going to be doing a ton of swatches and a ton of comparisons. So stay tuned for that. First, let me show you how they came packaged. Now, I did order mine directly from the Gucci website, and they each come in a little box like this. And then they have a plastic bag on top that is essentially the same size as the box. And then they used like Scotch tape to tape down all the corners of that bag. And that's how they came from the Gucci website. So I do have all 6 shades that were purchased there, and they were all like that. And then they came in this little Gucci drawstring bag. And then my first one that I ordered by itself, it came in a smaller bag, but then it also included this little shopping tote bag, which I don't know why, but I really like this bag. So I just wanted to make sure I shared this with you in case anybody is looking for something like this. It just came with my first purchase. I did not get a second one with my second purchase though. So just something to note. And they are available at a variety of retailers right now. They've been going in and out of stock at some of them as shades have been selling out. So let's go ahead and start with swatches. We're going to do all swatches in orders from 1 to 6. So as we start swatching, let's just take a look at the packaging real quickly. So on the back here, this does say that is 5.5 grams. On the Gucci website, it does say 11 grams, 0.21 ounces. This says 5.5 grams, 0.19 ounces. So not sure what the difference is. It's probably 5.5 grams of product would be my guess. And these have a 1-year shelf life and they are made in Italy. You can see you've got this gorgeous kind of shell pink with stars. This is the Gucci powder. You can see that the pink is almost the same. They're not exactly 100% the same. This is one of the original compacts. I think the shade is ever so slightly different. Now you can see like they're pretty much identical. It's probably just a batch difference there, but my blush compact just has a little bit more pink to it versus peach. So that's really the only difference. These blushes, they actually open here, and this is one that you actually separate. I have to say it's a little bit hard for me to open these sometimes. So I have actually kind of dug my finger in to a couple of these. Thankfully, not like hard enough to make marks really, but it did disturb it. They do come with a piece of plastic on the mirror. So these are refillable. You have the little component here to push that out. There are currently not refills available. Speaking of customer service, they currently do not have plans for that. But rumor is that it is something that they are working on. So we'll see. This is shade number 1. Another thing to note is the shade names here on the blushes versus what you'll see on some of the websites are different. So this is 01 Silky Rose. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of buff out the end of this a little bit, just so you can see what that kind of looks like buffed out versus built up. This here is shade number 2, Tender Apricot or Apricot. And I have to say on my skin, this is the lightest shade. This is the one that needs to be built up the most. So this is number 2. Here we have 3, Radiant Pink. So you can see a difference between these 2 pinks. The Radiant Pink is going to be a little bit darker, and it's actually a little bit more pink, whereas the Silky Rose has a slight touch of peach in there. This is 4, Bright Coral, also known online as Sweet Peach, I believe it was. And this is going to be more of a coral than a peach, in my opinion. You've got kind of a pretty good balance of pink and orange here. Slightly more orange tones than pink tones. This here is number 5, Rosy Beige. And this is kind of like your nude rose kind of shade, like a dusty rose with some brownish tones to it. This one might be my favorite. I really like this shade. And then the one I'm wearing right now is actually the deepest, which actually goes on very deeply. So I do have a demo of today's application as well, so you can see how I got it a little bit lighter. But this is number 6, Warm Berry. And you can see that there are going to be some more like brick tones in here. So it's not really a true berry. It's more of a brick red with a touch of berry. So I would definitely say more brick red than berry in my opinion. So these are shades 1 through 6. Let's talk a little bit about the formula and these blushes as we go through the demos on the cheek. So for each of these demos, I used the Sonia G Classic Cheek Brush from the Sky series. This is an undyed goat hair domed blush brush. It's one of my favorites. And you can see that on my right side, I kind of patted the blush in, which will give you a softer application. Whereas on the left of my face, I used more of a twirling buffing in motion, so that would make it a little bit more intense. I'm showing you 2 layers of each. I also have a demo here at the end with the softer application of the Warm Berry, so you can see what that looks like softer. And with that, to make that softer, I also use the Gucci face powder, the Poudre de Beauté in Matte Naturel 00. So that's basically what I used for the demos, and I did make sure to clean the brush in between each demo, and I also removed my foundation and everything and then reapplied that in between the demos to keep everything as same as possible, as much the same as possible for each of the demos. So this is Gucci's first powder blush, and according to Gucci, this was made for pure creative expression. And these are actually multi-use blushes. You can use these on the cheeks and on the eyes. I personally don't love these tones for my eyes myself, so I did not use them as an eyeshadow. There are lots of other videos out there that have formula-wise, you know, they work fine on the eyes. I tested it just a little to see what it felt like, but I didn't do like a wear test or anything. So I can't tell you exactly how long it would last. But I personally just don't love these pinker shades on my eyes. But they work great as blushes, and I have to say I really, really like the formula for these. Now, just a little bit more about these. As I mentioned, they do have a 1-year shelf life, and they are made in Italy. And these are fragranced. So there is going to be a fragrance, and that is called Vintage Peony. That is the scent, according to Gucci. And it's described as a vintage floral accord composed of peony and freesia and modernized by a watery citrus accord and evanescent musky notes. I am not a huge fragrance buff, so I cannot smell something and necessarily identify exactly what's in it. But as for this scent, I do not find it very overwhelming. It's a smaller compact, so when I open something like the Gucci bronzer or the Gucci face powder, that's kind of like right there in my face right away. I can smell it for a while, especially when it's a new product. These blushes, it does not seem as intense. That could be related to the smaller size of it. As for how the fragrances compare, I'm not sure if they are exactly the same or not, and there's just like a difference between the age of my products and so forth. But for me personally, they smell very similar, but the blushes smell just a little bit more of a fruity floral. I don't necessarily smell citrus per se, but definitely a little bit more of that fruity floral note to it. Whereas with my bronzer and my powder and so forth, I get something a little bit more, probably more musky. So it could be a difference in the age or whatever, but it's a very, very similar fragrance. So if you don't like one, you probably won't like the other. Now, a little bit more about this blush from Gucci. They do have the ingredients online, so we're not going to go through all of those, but they have a bunch of different emollient waxes to give you long-lasting color that kind of stays put and intensifies layer upon layer. And it's supposed to also be ultra thin yet hydrating. And they have a mix of shea butter, hyaluronic acid, and black rose oil in here to kind of give you like that thin, lightweight texture on your skin that is supposed to feel more like skin. And I have to say it's very comfortable, very light. I don't feel it on my cheeks. I don't feel any sort of creaminess. It's a powder blush, but not a dry powder blush. And yeah, you know, they're matte, but they have a slight sheen to them. So they're not a flat matte. There's definitely going to be a little bit of radiance there without any shimmer particles. So I think that's really nice. These are dermatologically tested and non-comedogenic as well. And they are supposed to be good for all skin types and safe for, you know, sensitive eyes and everything as well. Now, as for my personal thoughts on these blushes, I have to say that I am really enjoying these. I think Gucci really did a fantastic job with their blushes. You know, I think Gucci overall has done a really great job with the products that they have released in their beauty line. The bronzer is by far my favorite bronzer. I think the powder is nice. These blushes, you know, I would say the bronzer is by far my favorite bronzer. These blushes are definitely up there in my favorites. I wouldn't put them at my #1 spot, but I love how they go on with a very thin layer. It's buildable. You don't really see it, yet you can still blend it out. So I think these really apply very nicely, and I'm really, really happy with the formula here. They last all day. I love having something with that kind of radiant matte type of finish, you know, without any shimmer or glitter particles. I think it's really beautiful, sophisticated, yet it doesn't look dry on the skin. So I'm really loving these. So moving on to comparisons, we'll talk a little bit about different blush formulas while we're going through these as well. We're going to start off with one of the Makeup by Mario blushes. This is in Wild Berry. And we're going to take a look at that with #6, Warm Berry. So you can kind of see that these are going to be fairly close. Now, formula-wise, the actual Makeup by Mario, you can see this is going to be a little bit more berry, a little bit more pink. The Makeup by Mario is also going to be a thin powder, but it's not going to be quite as, this is almost like a gel cream, like one of those gel to powder type formulas in the Gucci, whereas the Makeup by Mario is going to be a little bit drier. It's also very thin. It does not feel quite as refined though. When you're swatching it, this you can feel more of the actual particle sizes, whereas the Gucci feels thinner, more finely milled. I also wanted to compare the Makeup by Mario Creamy Peach with #4, Bright Coral. So this is gonna go right up here with Bright Coral, and you can see that the Makeup by Mario has more pink in it. And let's actually put that here. This is Radiant Pink right there. And you can see that they're actually a little bit closer. The Makeup by Mario has a little bit more orange than the pink, but you can see how warm that pink is just in comparison then. Next, we're looking at the Tom Ford Blush Duo in 01 Brazen Rose. And we're going to look at this side right here with #5 Rosy Beige from Gucci. And that's going to be right there. You can see the difference with the Tom Ford. You can also see that the Tom Ford is going to be a more powdery product than the Gucci. And it's going to be a little bit more sheer. It's very buildable, but they're buildable in different ways. The Gucci, again, is going to be more sheer, has more of that gel type creaminess to it, and you build that with thin layers, whereas this is more of a powder that builds upon itself and you can actually buff more in. And it's almost as though the Gucci is creating a very thin layer there, whereas the Tom Ford is having the powder particles kind of settle into like pores and so forth, if that makes sense. Now it does have, the Tom Ford also has like silicone and so forth, I believe. I'd have to double check the ingredients, but I feel like it has silicone in there that kind of helps prevent it from settling in the pores and so forth, so you don't get kind of that like caked on look or anything like that. But I feel that's a good analogy for how these formulas kind of react on the skin. Tom Ford #2 Explicit Flush. We're going to look at this side with #4 Bright Coral. And you can see that this Tom Ford one here is going to be more orange. It's going to be more vibrant. This is Tom Ford number 3, Peach Poison. We're going to take a look at the orangey shade with number 2, Tender Apricot. And you can see that the Tom Ford definitely looks deeper in the pan. It looks more vibrant, and you can see it's got more of that like almost like a neon quality to it when you swatch that. And we're going to look at number 4, Cherry Blaze. We're looking at this lighter peach shade with number 2 as well. And this one is going to be a bit more similar. You can see though that the Gucci still has a little bit more, it's got a little bit more orange to it, but more of that like marigold type orange versus more of a pumpkin orange in Tom Ford. Number 5, Sundrunk. We're taking a look at the peachy shade here with this one with number 2 again. So there you go. You can see there's going to be a little bit more brown in there. And then we're going to take a look at number 5 from Gucci with the rosier shade in Sundrunk. And there's that. You can see it's going to be a lot more pink. Doesn't really have the more brownish nude tones in it. We're taking a look at number 6, Aflame, with the Gucci 01 Silky Rose. Let's just go ahead and look at both of these shades here. And here are those. You can see the deeper shade from Aflame does actually go tonally with number 1. Number 1, however, is going to be a bit warmer. We're also going to look at this with number 3, Radiant Pink. So here's number 3. And again, you can see that the Tom Ford shades are just going to be a lot cooler than the Radiant Pink here. Actually goes better with number 1, even though again, number 1's it's gonna be a little bit warmer, a little bit more orangey. One more Makeup by Mario. This is Desert Rose. We're gonna put that with number 5 right down here. And you can see it's gonna be rosier. Next, we're moving on to the Sisley Lafido blushes. This is shade number 1, Pink Peony, with Gucci 03 Radiant Pink. Now, this formula is also going to be more of one of those gel cream to powder type products, but it's actually not as firmly pressed as the Gucci. And I feel like these actually can become more intense in the Gucci, just slightly. You can both build them up a lot. But I do feel like this is kind of like a little bit more to the end of the gel cream spectrum, or gel powder spectrum, I rather. But the Gucci is kind of like in between that, closer to that range. So if this is our scale, we've got our Sisley here for gel to powder. Gucci is here, and then we're going to have a traditional, more like a pressed powder, very finely milled pressed powder like the Hermes here. So I feel like it's closer to the Sisley, but it has qualities of both. This is Sisley number 3 Coral with the Gucci Coral, and you can see that the Sisley looks a lot more vibrant. Let's put that right, well that's apricot, so let's see here. Put it right here. This is the Gucci Coral. You can see how much more red the Sisley is and how much more vibrant and bright it is. And this is Sisley number 5 in Rosewood. Let's take a look at that with number 5 Rosy Beige and number 6 Warm Berry. So I'm going to swatch this one kind of in between the two of those so we can kind of see that. Let's go kind of right here. So you can see how that compares to both. You can see it's definitely going to be more pink than the Warm Berry shade. Doesn't have the nude tones of number 5. Very different actually from both of them, but closer to Warm Berry. This is the Hermes in 23 Rose Blush with number 2 Tender Apricot. And let's go ahead and put this kind of right up here. So you can kind of see that. You can see it's going to be more pink. Again, this is going to be a very finely milled powder. I do feel like the Gucci does definitely have a lot of similarities with how this feels texturally, but I just feel like there's a little bit more of that gel type texture in the Gucci than there is in the Hermes. This is Hermes 49 Rose Tan with number 5 Rosy Beige, and The Hermes is going to be more brown. It's got more of those like warm golden tones to it than the Gucci, which is right here. All right, so this is Hermes number 32, Rose Palmette, with number 3 from Gucci. And for those of you who are wondering about Rose Palmette, I'm sorry, Rose Plume, that's going to be a lot cooler. So I'm not going to be able to fit that one in here, but you can see already that Rose Palmette is a lot cooler as well. The Rose Plume actually has a little bit of a purpley tone to it compared to these Gucci's. This is 61 Rose Fia with Gucci Warm Berry. Let's go ahead and put this down here. And again, it's going to be more rosy. This is 45 Rose Ombre with number 5 Rosy Beige. So let's see how this one compares. Can we fit this one in right there? It's going to be a lot lighter. Let me re-swatch these two. So here is the Hermes. And there's the Gucci. And we also have number 19, Rose Apricot, with the Gucci number 2, Tender Apricot. So let's take a look at that right up here. So this up here is the Gucci. And you can see that this doesn't have as much of those like yellow tones in it. It's going to be a more vibrant orange tone. They actually complement each other well, but I do feel like there's more of a brighter yellow note in the Gucci. This is the RMS in French Rosé. We're just going to go ahead and swatch this one kind of like right over here. Look at how this compares to the two pinks. You can see it's much more vibrant. It's going to be a cooler tone pink. This does have shimmer. This is the RMS. These are the Redimension Hydro Powder blushes. These have actually, it's a kind of a similar like gel type texture to them, but not as finely milled, and these have shimmer. So these are definitely gonna be highlighting blushes. This one here is Maiden's Blush, and we're gonna put this is like a cinnamon shade. We're gonna go ahead and put this right here. So this is the Gucci. You can see that tonally, number 5 from Gucci, this has a little bit more of a purpley red note, whereas this one has a little bit more, it's a little spicier, a little bit more cinnamon. So it's kind of in between the 5 and the 6. I would say though that Maiden's Blush from RMS is pretty close to number 5 if you really build it up. You know, straight off the bat though, number 5 is a lot less pigmented with one layer than the RMS. Really like both, but again, this will be more of a shimmery powder. All right, so I'm running out of room, so I re-swatched 1 through 6 on my right arm, and we're going to go ahead and continue with the comparisons. Now we're moving into the Suku, and we're going to start off with the Melting Color blushes. This is number 9. This is one of the new permanent ones, and we're gonna put this one right down here next to number 5. And the Suku formula, I would have to say, is just a little bit more gel-like, a little bit creamier than the Gucci. It's a little bit softer of a formula, not quite as firmly pressed, but they do have some similarities here with how they appear on the skin and how smooth they are. So you can see here that number 9 is going to be a little bit warmer than number 5 from Gucci. This has a little bit more of a golden tan look to it in comparison. This is number 10, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at this one. Let's put this one right here, kind of next to number 6, Warm Berry. And you can see how it compares to all of the others. It's definitely going to be cooler, more rosy. It's definitely cooler than these pinks, definitely cooler than the Warm Berry here. This has more like plum in it. Suku number 5, and we're going to take a look at this right up here with the Tender Apricot. You can see that the Suku is going to be more yellow. It's warmer, and there's a little bit more, the sheen is a bit stronger in the Suku. Number 3, this is we're going to take a look at this over here. Well, let's put it right here between number 2 and number 3. You can see it's going to be more orange. Let's take a look at it actually with number 4, the coral shade here. You can see that, again, there's more orange here than in the Gucci. Just for comparison's sake, this is number 8. This is going to be much warmer. It's more of a rusty brown shade compared to the Gucci's. This one's number 7. It has a bit more red in it. So let's take a look at how that compares. Put that right there. You can see it's got more red than the number 8 from Suku, but it still doesn't have kind of that brick tone that you get in the Gucci. This is number 2. And this is one of my favorites. This is a nice kind of a warm pink. Let's put that here next to number 3. You can see that it's going to be cooler than 3. Let's try it next to 1 as well. But again, this is going to be a cooler tone. Number 4 here, this is one of my most used shades from Suku. We're going to take a look at that right down there with number 5, Rosy Beige. But you can see that it's going to be warmer. It has some kind of golden tan notes to it. Moving on to Dior, this is going to be more of your traditional powder blush. This is 332. This was a limited edition shade that came out. I forget what it was, but it came out for fall last year. Let's look at that next to Tender Apricot. You can see it's going to be, this is like more of a true pumpkin orange. This is 219 Rose Montagne. And let's take a look at that one right here with the pink. You can see that the Dior does have a little bit of some like shimmer quality to it, just a touch. It's going to be slightly cooler in tone, but it is fairly close. Let's look at that with Radiant Pink as well, just so you can kind of see how those compare. You can see that this is going to be, it has a little bit more warmth to it than Radiant Pink. This is one of the limited edition Dior's 468 with number 5, Rosy Beige. They actually look pretty close in the pan, but the Dior does have sparkle. It has shimmer. So let's see how they compare. Color-wise though, they're fairly similar. They're still, the Gucci has just a little bit more of a brownish plum note to it than you get with the Dior, but they're pretty close. So that's it for my Dior. I do have a couple other blushes, but honestly, they don't look anything like any of the shades there. Let's take a look at Cle de Peau. I don't have a ton of the Cle de Peau powders yet. This here is number 102. Let's just go ahead and swatch these two. Let's see here. We'll just put them down here. You can kind of see how they go. They're a lot cooler than number 3 and number 1. These are going to be more of just a very finely milled powder formula, but they don't have that gel-like texture. They're going to be a little bit more powdery than the Hermes as well, so they're not quite as firmly pressed. Moving on, these are the Chantecaille Philanthropy shades. This is Joy, and this is going to be our pink. Let's go ahead and look at that there. Can see it's going to be, it's a warm pink still, but it's much more vibrant, more bright, and it still has more pink than orange in it compared to the Radiant Pink. This one here is Bliss Butterfly. This is going to be much, much lighter and softer than any of these. The closest in tone is going to be number 5, Rosy Beige, but you can see that this is really more of like a champagne pink shade. And then moving on, we have Emotion, the B shade. This is one of my favorites, and I really like that one as a comparison here with the number 4, the Bright Coral. But you can see that this is going to be more vibrant, and it's a little bit brighter, and it has more of that, a brighter, more neon orange in it versus more of a dusty orange. Here is Smitten, which is the elephant. Let's go ahead and put that there as well. Again, this is going to be brighter and more vibrant. We've got Laughter, which is the coral here. Let's go ahead and put that one right up there. And you can see that this is going to be rosier, but it does, you know, it's a nice shade. It's similar, but it's a little bit pinker than either number 1 or number 3 from Gucci. And last one of the Chantecaille, this is Grace, the Sea Turtle shade. And let's just put that next to 4, Bright Coral as well. And that one didn't swatch very well. Let's do that again. And here we go. So this one has more pink in it than the coral, but you know, it's fairly close. Now these are going to be more powdery. They're drier. and they sheer out beautifully. They're really beautiful on the cheeks, but they don't build up as easily or as well as something with this more gel-like texture in the Gucci. So it's not going to work as well for deeper complexions as the Gucci will, in my opinion. One more Tom Ford I wanted to share. This is the Cle de Peau that came out this year, and we're going to take a look at this, both of these shades. We're going to take a look at kind of this more brown shade here with number 5, and this other shade, the peachier shade with the coral. You can see this like peachier shade. Let's actually put that right up here as well with number 1. And it's more pink. But yeah, it's kind of similar to 1 and 5, I would say. Next, we're going in through Chanel. This is number 80, Jersey. And let's just go ahead and put a little swatch of that right there. You can see it's going to be more brown than number 5. But they're both going to give you kind of that nude flush. If you've been looking for a rosier version, the Gucci number 5 might be a good option. This one here is 260 Alizé, and this one is going to have a little bit of shimmer. You can see this is going to be a little bit more plum than the Gucci. This is 71 Malice, and let's take a look at that one. Gosh, it's getting hard even over here now. But this is number 4 going right here with Malice, which is going to be more pink. And let's look at that actually up here as well with number 1. Oh, it's definitely much more pink than number 1. Number 2, Rose Bronze from Chanel. Let's just go ahead and add this over here. And yeah, let me see, maybe if I add it to this side, you can see it a little bit better. I find Chanel blushes are pretty hard to swatch, but you can see it's going to be pinker and softer in tone. 72 Rose Initial. This is one of my favorite Chanel blushes. Let's put that one right over here. So you can see here that this is going to be much more vibrant and cool than number 3, Radiant Pink, and it's definitely a lot cooler than number 1. 68 Rose Écrin or Écrin. Let's see if we can fit that right here. It's a lot softer. I do think though, tonally these look pretty similar. Let's do this. Let's try this on my hand actually and see if we can see that better. So here's Rose Écrin and the Gucci. Gucci's definitely significantly darker. Yeah, they don't look as much alike anymore. They have a little bit of a similar tone, but the Chanel is definitely a lot pinker and a lot softer. All right, so those are my comparisons for the Gucci blushes. I have to say that overall, you know, the colors themselves, let's face it, they're not revolutionary, but what blush colors really are. They have a really great range though, if you're looking at shades 1 through 6. And I have to say they are definitely very buildable. As you can tell from the cheek swatches, you can get those light sheer layers of color. Even something like Warm Berry can work for me, but it's definitely going to work better on somebody with a deeper complexion. You know, you don't have to be as careful as I do going in with that shade. Now, out of all of them, I would have to say that number 2 is actually the least buildable and the lightest shade. And, you know, I think all of the others really build up really well. Numbers 1, 3, 4 build up. They're probably all about the same color level, color depth, 1, 3, and 4. 2 is the lightest, 6 is the deepest, and 5 would be the second deepest. But 5 is one I would say is the most buildable. It's easiest to get a very, very light layer with that and then build it up to a very deep layer. So, you know, I feel like that one has the most range. Overall, I have to say I really like them. Favorite shades for me would be number 5, the Rosy Beige. I think it's a great everyday shade. And then after that, I really like number 4, the Bright Coral. And those are gonna be my 2 favorite shades from this particular range. I think their pinks are gorgeous, soft pinks that'll work well on a variety of skin tones. But I do wish that they have 2 pinks. They're fairly similar, so I wish that one of them was significantly cooler than the other. They're both kind of more on the warmer pink side. So it would have been nice to see one just as warm as it is, and the other one cooler, more of those like more silvery tones in there, you know, more of that blue-based pink versus a peach-based pink. So I just think it would have made the range just a little bit better to have both options there. But overall, I have to say I really like these. I would definitely be interested in picking up more when they expand the color range. And I love the compact. The only thing I don't love about the compact is opening it. I do find it a little challenging to open. Even on number 4, Bright Coral, which I have been using for about 2 weeks now, and I've been opening that, you know, I've opened it at least 10 times at this point, and it's still just a little tough to open. Sometimes it's worse than others, and that's true with all of these. So I wish that the way to open these was a little bit easier, but I would definitely recommend these. If you don't like fragrance, keep in mind these are fragranced, so smell it before you buy it. If you are familiar with the Gucci fragrance, it's very similar to what you smell in the other powder products. Again, this smells a little bit lighter and a little bit fruitier to me, but it could be because it is just, you know, a different batch, different formula per se, so the ingredients will react differently, and it's a smaller size. So I would say if you are familiar with the powder fragrances, they're pretty similar. Now, as for a size comparison, I did do this comparison in my initial video, but you can see that this is going to be a thicker compact than most of the other round compacts. And size-wise, it is going to be kind of in between the Hermes and the Chantecaille Philanthropy. Now, product size-wise, the Hermes is 6 grams, Gucci is 5.5 grams, and then we have 2.5 grams for this one. And that's the Chantecaille. So thank you so much. I hope this was helpful, and please let me know what you think of these, and I will see you very soon. Have a great day.